My name is Jim Mulvale. I'm on the BICN board and on the organizing committee, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce our first and opening keynote speaker, Dr. Antonio Prado. Antonio is a Brazilian economist, and his current position is Deputy Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission of Latin America and the Caribbean, a position he assumed in November 2009, appointed by the Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon. I guess you could say it in English, the acronym ECLAC. The Economic Commission of Latin America and the Caribbean it's headquartered in Santiago, Chile. It's one of 5 regional commissions of the United Nations and was founded in 1948. It promotes economic development, trade, and social development with countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. And Antonio specifically, in his professional career, he's analyzed technological changes in industry and their impact on economic development and the labor market in Brazil. He's been a professor of the Catholic University in São Paulo, and more recently at the Rio Branco Institute of the Brazil's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He holds a master's degree in industrial relations and a PhD in economic development policies from the State University of Campinas in Brazil. And before joining ECLAC, Antonio served as the economic advisor to the president of the government seat in the Brazilian Senate, and also as the head officer of government affairs of the presidency of the Brazilian National Bank for Economic and Social Development. He's also been actively engaged in various institutes and civil society organizations that study economic development and labor. And he's prepared statistical surveys of the cost of living, employment, as well as studies on income distribution and racial and gender issues in the Brazilian economy. So without further ado, please welcome warmly and join me in welcoming Dr. Antonio Prado to deliver the opening keynote address.
I'm very pleased and honored to be here today, and I would say it's my first time with the BN, and the first time I've heard about basic income was in a meeting with Senator Suplicy in Brazil. I guess it was in 1991. I was with my ex-boss, Walter Barelli, and Paul Sinja was there, and Mercadante too. And I was there for one reason. I worked before I become a United Nations officer, I worked with a research institution in labor market and trade union issues. And by that time, we were very worried about this basic income. And why is that? We were worried because it could conflict with our campaign on minimum wages. Well, today we have, I guess, I didn't see the last figures in Brazil, I guess 13 million families in this Bolsa Família, and also the minimum wage doubled in real terms, so the conflict didn't exist. It was a very, very good news. But I think it took a long, long time to get to this point. Well, I will present to you our last document that we launched in Lima, Peru, and it is named Compacts for Equality. It's a part of a trilogy. The first one was the Time for Equality that we launched in Brazil in 2010, and the second one was Structural Changes for Equality that we launched in El Salvador in 2012, and this Compacts for Equality that we launched in Lima. Well, first of all, to sustain equality during the time. And also, we think the instrument is politics. So it is necessary to mobilize society to get this results. This last document, we added some not only inequality linked to income, but also other dimensions of equality, as educational inequality, territorial segregation, living conditions, reproductive rights, recognition, gender, and ethnicity. So the idea is to address the issue of equality in multidimensional way. We think it's very, very important, because if for one side it's possible to say that Latin America is the most unequal region in the world, but if you consider income, of course we're not the most unequal if you consider gender, for instance, because certainly there are other regions that gender is a lot bigger problem than in Latin America. We also consider private consumption, because Latin America is going through a very good period of increase of private consumption. But the same is not happening with public consumptions, with public services. So in-house, things are going well, the consumption is growing, but if you consider the social infrastructure, urban infrastructure, there is a very big gap that we need to address and to consider. Also, environmental sustainability, because the pattern of consumption that we adopt is a pattern that means pollution. So we also need to think another way to address consumption. And we think public consumption to equilibrate this would be important this way, because you can avoid contamination by public services. Natural resource governance too. This region very rich with the natural resources, but it doesn't have a very good governance in this natural resources, mainly to appropriate part of the rents of the exploration of these natural resources. Well, this is the new variables and the new issues that we consider in this context for equality, in the sense to enhance the vision. Well, this graphic, you will see the first 10 years, you can see clearly that the poverty rates are growing. That is known as the last decade in Latin America, the financial crisis of the 80s. And we can see the social cost of this financial crisis and hyperinflation during this period. But it's very important to see that we took 25 years to get back to the same poverty rates. So the cost was really, really big. And you also can see that the recovery of per capita GDP happened in 15 years. So there is a gap between the recovery of the GDP, that's the blue line, comparing to the red one, that is the rate of poverty. Well, after 1990, the poverty rate started to decrease, and it was related to a sort of things. That first, the inflation was decreasing in this period. So the hyperinflation was also there are demographic issues here. It's we call a demographic bonus that is happening until 2022. We will see this. So you can see the rate are decreasing, but the GDP growth is not very good by that time. It's 2.3%, the average a year, and the policies are not so strong to reduce the rate of poverty. But after 2000, the slope of the curve, it's really very steep. So you can see that the poverty rate are decreasing very, very rapidly by that time. We were very worried about the crisis of 2007 and 2008 because we thought the governments of the region could adopt neoliberal oriented policies as they did during the 80s and most of the time in the 90s. But no, they adopt counter-cyclical policies and avoided the growth of poverty and also of unemployment. So you can see that in 2007, 2008, it was near 33 and it stayed there, and after it continued to reduce. So the region also, after this period of the 90s, started to learn some lessons of what they did during the 80s and the 90s. So it was very important to avoid the increase of the rate of poverty. So you can see here how the inflation rates started to decrease during the 90s and to converge to the world average. You can see the red line converging to the blue one. It was very important. You also can see the increase of the social expenditures as percentage of the public spending. So it started in 50 in 1992, 1993, and now it's 65.9. And also social expenditures as percentage of the GDP is around 20%. So that's and it was growing during all this time. Here we can see the demographic data, so the reduction of the dependency rate. It will last until the 2020, and after that we will have problems on this issue because the dependency rate will start to grow again by the aging of the population. So when we issued this Compact for Equality, we were worried about how to sustain this process, how to sustain this diminution path of the poverty rate, and also the best indicator, the better indicator that we have about income distribution. We have to consider three main dimensions: the productive dimension, the economic dimension, institutional dimension, and as a dimension that is related to all of them is sustainable development. The first dimension, that is the productive dimension, there is a very important problem that the region needs to address, that we call structural heterogeneity. Well, this structural heterogeneity is linked, first of all, is linked to the phenomenon that productivity do not spill over from high productivity sectors to the low productivity sectors. This is a problem very old in Latin America, and it continues to be there. And also, when we consider productivity levels, you can see see here the right X, you can see the numbers of Latin America and the world average. Latin America had $20,000 as a GDP per person employed in 1991, and it's near 2004 or something like that nowadays. So it's not growing. The slope is not very rapid. You can see East Asia or even Southeast Asia they are converging to they're too far away, but they are converging to the rate of productivity of the developed economies. Developed economies you have to see on this left side. So you will see here it's $52,000 in 1991 to something like $75,000 GDP per person employed in 2012. So it's growing in the developed economies. But as you all know, it's growing, but the wages are not following this rate of increase of the productivity, even in the developed economies. So when you're talking about democratizing economy, this is a very important issue because the results of this productivity growth is not being appropriated by the wages. Well, this is a very clear picture of this heterogeneity problem that I was talking about. The high productivity segment, that is this blue bar here, generates almost two-thirds of the GDP, and only 20% of the employment. So this is a very clear picture of this heterogeneity problem that I'm talking about. The rest, the 80% of the employments are generated by medium productivity segment and low productivity segment. You can see in the right graphic that the high productivity segment has an average productivity around $91,200. So it's over the average of the developed economies. So we could say, well, they are up to date if you consider, if you compare to the high productivity companies of the developed economies. But when you take a look at the other sectors, they're very low. Low productivity segment has a $5,600 of productivity and employs 50.2% of the people. So it's this is the main picture, and it has not changed during the last 12 years. Well, this is the labor market. We can see when we talk about labor market that the unemployment rates are very low right now in the region. In almost all the countries of Latin America, it's not the same. The same is not happening in the Caribbean islands, but in Latin America, yes, it is. But once more, it's the problem is how to sustain this problem. Well, we also address this problems of sustainability in the sense of environmental sustainability. So consumption and urbanization with negative externalities. Environmental sustainability, also it's very important to, in the sense that to address it, it's necessary to involve the people that are being hit by this changes in the environment. And we have two cases in the national level that are very important. The challenge of water, for instance, in Peru, there are a lot of conflicts there with the mining companies and peasants of the region, and also about the forests disasters. Disasters because Central America and the Caribbean islands are hit frequently by natural disasters.